That's, anybody who's ex-military will recognize that. When a superior officer enters the room, and you all come to attention. So every time Dana walks in the room, that's what I say. That's good recovery there. Okay, so as Heather said, we're going to be looking at a portion of the Gospel of John, John chapter 5, verses 1 through 9. Now, as I read this, I'm going to pause at what many of your Bibles probably will say is not verse 4. Verse 4 doesn't exist in most modern translations because the oldest and the best manuscripts, and I won't go into a lot of detail about that, don't have it. So this is a later addition by a board scribe, possibly. You never know. Or it could be more or less legitimate. It's just not in any of the, or in most of the oldest and best attested manuscripts. But I mention this not to get into a debate about textual criticism, but because I kind of mention it later in my sermon. And when I wrote my sermon, this verse was in my head because I grew up with the King James and the New King James and then the NIV, but it's a footnote. So anyway, chapter 5. After this, which is John's way of saying the stuff that just happened, there was a feast of the Jews, and Jesus went up to Jerusalem. So Jesus had healed an official's son in Cana. So more than a wedding happened at Cana. He healed this official's son. So after that, Jesus went up to Jerusalem. Now, there is in Jerusalem by the sheep gate a pool in Aramaic called Bethesda or Bethsaida, which has 5 roofed colonnades. In these lay a multitude of invalids, blind, lame, paralyzed. Now here's verse 4. Ooh, it's even smaller. Waiting for the moving of the water. For an angel of the Lord went down at certain seasons into the pool and stirred the water. Whoever stepped in first after the stirring of the water was healed of whatever disease he had. Verse 5, one man was there who had been an invalid for 38 years. When Jesus saw him lying there and knew that he'd already been there a long time, he said to him, "Do you want to be healed?" The sick man answered him, "Sir, I have no one to put me into the pool when the water is stirred up. And while I'm going, another steps down before me." Jesus said to him, "Get up, take up your bed, and walk." And at once the man was healed, and he took up his bed and walked. The ever-popular hot weather treat known as the popsicle. How many of you have ever had a popsicle? I don't have my glasses on, so I can't. Come on, hands up. You're lying. You've all had popsicles or knockoffs. That was invented by 11-year-old Frank Epperson in San Francisco. One winter night in 1905, he mixed a soft drink with soda powder and water, which was a popular confection at the time. You know, we used to wear an onion on our belt. That's a Simpsons reference. And he took this out on the porch that evening with him to enjoy the cool San Francisco evening. And when he went into bed, he left it out there on the porch with a stir stick in it. During the night, the temperatures dropped to record lows, and when he retrieved a glass the next morning, he found this fruit-flavored substance frozen to the stick. He's said to have tasted it, shown it to his friends, but did little else with his accidental invention for quite a few years. Well, 18 years later, in 1923, he decided to apply for a patent for his frozen ice on a stick, and decided then to call the novelty the Epsicle Ice Pop. He also began producing the treat in several different flavors. Well, he was a father by then, and his kids had begun to referring, not unnaturally, to the epsicle as the pop-sicle. Pop, Dad. That name stuck. Now, I'm sure that many of you, well, I did. I went to Tim Hortons before I came here this morning, or we went to Tim Hortons before we came this morning. Maybe after church, you'll have a cup of coffee, or you're enjoying a cup of coffee now, eh, Val? Or maybe you'll go somewhere after church. Maybe you'll go down to Bean Trees, or maybe sometime this week you'll meet a friend at Bean Trees, or Tim's, or Starbucks. When I was in Afghanistan, we had a coffee shop. Every American overseas post has what's called a green beans. It's a coffee shop. No shock. We had two in Kabul, believe it or not, one on the camp I was at, Camp Phoenix, and another one about 7 clicks down the road to the east at Camp Alamo. I don't know why Americans name their camps. That's bad luck. Alamo? Really? Anyway, that's a side thing. So we would go to the green beans. Well, I went every day. Because quite frankly, the coffee at the DFAC, or dining facility, was swill. So we would go. My two friends and I, Master Warrant Officer Kevin Littlejohn, who is now a retired Princess Patricia, Canadian Land Infantry dude, and Wainwright, and the other one was a Captain Tom, Reserve Engineer Tom Arnott. Bill Arnott from St. Thomas, Ontario. And we would buy coffee one after the other, like today's my turn, tomorrow, and we get in line. Hey, it's your turn to buy coffee. It is not. And then it would turn into a Three Stooges, why you? Sort of thing. And we would enjoy, in the middle of this still ongoing war zone, a cup of liquid heaven until they ran out of coffee for 2 weeks. Coffee shop ran out of coffee. Well, from its pre-modern beginnings, coffee was freighted with religious and social and medicinal significance. The Chinese first discovered caffeine in 2737 BC and used it as medicinal tea. The Ethiopians then took the raw beans that grew in the highlands and either chewed them or brewed the leaves like tea. When the Ethiopian queen, Makeda, whom we know as the Queen of Sheba, paid a visit to Solomon and posed him these hard questions, she first plied him with precious spices, frankincense, myrrh, some say coffee beans. Shortly thereafter, she opened a Starbucks in Jerusalem and then another one across the corner. Well, if the first use of coffee was medicinal, the second use was spiritual, as Islamic Sufi mystics figured out how to extract the wine of the bean by brewing the coffee beans. And this enhanced their spiritual awareness, as it does mine, fortified rituals of ecstatic dance, and sustained all-night spinning ceremonies popular among those that we, or at least our parents and grandparents, called whirling dervishes. And if you are, like I used to be a double-double kind of guy. In the military, we call that NATO standard. And if you are like that, I don't take cream or sugar in my coffee any longer. I think I grew up, maybe. But if you add cream, and I used to say 18% is the best, just like Tim Hortons, and maybe you add a little bit of sugar and stir. And stir. Oh, beautiful. Just beautiful. You may stir your coffee with the ubiquitous stir stick. Where would that gorgeous cup of brown nectar be without the stir stick? The sugar would sink to the bottom in a blob. The cream would just lay there kind of weakly and insipidly. And where would the popsicle be without its stir stick-like stick? We'd have nothing to hold on to. You just have this sticky, icy thing in your hand and dribbling down your forearm. Oh, you'd get so sticky. The popsicle would melt faster than you could eat it. The stir stick, a mighty invention of mankind. You won't see one of those short blurbs on TV, history, heritage moments or whatever about the stir stick, but they should. It sounds silly. An ode to the stir stick. A paean of praise to this little stick, which I should have brought one up with me. Obviously, the stir stick is useless unless it has a cup of coffee to stir, a popsicle in which to be mounted as a handle. But it's not about the stick. It's not about the stick. It's about that with which the stick is associated. I even got that grammatically correct. It's about that with which the stick is associated. But then we often get the wrong end of the stick. And that is where this passage from John comes in. It's not about what does the stirring. Was it an angel? Was it the wind? Was it a message from God? It doesn't really matter. It's about something entirely different. Now, picture a pool. Picture a pool, the edges of which are crowded with the lame. Beggars coughing deep, racking coughs. Cripples prone on filthy mats and arms slung across their faces to shield their eyes from the fiery disk in the sky. Parents with children afflicted with what we might now call spina bifida or multiple sclerosis or Down syndrome. Why are they and dozens of others gathered at this pool? Its name is Bethesda, House of Mercy. Fitting name as it happens. It may also have been named in Aramaic Bethzatha or Bethsaida, a place of poured out water. Also fitting. And every day, every single day, they gather. It's not always the same people. It's not always the same beggars. It's not always the same parents, hopes fading. It's not always the same disabled. But every day, dozens, a shifting panoply of suffering humanity. Why do they gather? Why do they return day after day? Why do they come to this pool like some bleak funhouse image of tourists at a resort? Well, they come because they hope. They hope for healing. And though many have come for so long, it's just what they do, so it's less about hope than perhaps habit. They believe that when the water is stirred, the first in will receive healing. They believe perhaps that an angel stirs the water. They believe like some kind of cosmic game of roulette. And into this crowd, this mass of hopeless humanity, strides Jesus. And Jesus spies a man. Out of the entire sad crowd, he focuses on one individual. Did he have greater potential? Was he going to be that generation's Einstein or Tchaikovsky? Was he remarkable in the depth of his faith, his unquenchable hope? John doesn't tell us. John says nothing about why Jesus picked this man. Gives no hint that there was anything remarkable about this man whatsoever, anything out of the ordinary, anything that would have drawn Jesus' attention to him. Maybe he was 6'5". I doubt it. He tells us simply that this man had been disabled for 38 years. 38 years lying prone on a mat. Just a thin little mat, probably made of reeds. 38 years of begging for crumbs, 38 years of aimless days. 38 years. And I would imagine he'd given up anything like hope long ago. Every time the water stirred, unpredictable as it was, he never even reached the top step, dragging his body before half the crowded colonnade was in the water. No one helped him. Perhaps no one cared. No one bothered with him. This was his life. May he become used to it. But suddenly there's a man standing before him, the sun shining behind his head, outlining him in radiance. Do you want to get well? Do you want to get well? What kind of question is that? It may seem rather painfully and obvious in its answer. Of course he wants to get well. But it's not really that simple. The man knew no other life. He knew no other life than begging, than disability. He had a routine, settled, predictable routine. He knew what he could and couldn't do. He had his spot at the pool, may even have had friends of a sort. Often beggars and look after one another. If he was made well, miraculously, amazingly, unlikely, he would lose all of that, little as it was. He'd be entering an unknown life. He'd no longer be able to depend on others. He would have to take care of himself, be responsible for himself. This is a society, there was no welfare. Begging was welfare. That was it. He'd have to earn a living. How would he earn a living? He probably had no skills, no trade, only begging, and people don't give to a healthy, able-bodied beggar. The scene from Monty Python's Life of Brian pops into one's mind. Michael Palin dancing along. You know, money for a beggar? You're fine. I know, this guy healed me, it's annoying. To be healed then meant to enter a completely new life. A life of wonderful possibilities, but also of the unknown. Maybe that's why his answer to Jesus' question is not a direct one, it's a complaint. No one helps me. He doesn't answer directly, he spouts off. He doesn't seem to expect much. And that's why it's all the more astonishing that in response to, or perhaps in spite of, his lack of faith or even expectation of help, Jesus, with few words, heals him. Get up, pick up your mat and walk. Now I wonder what went through this fellow's head. What was he thinking as he stood on feet that would suddenly bear his weight, on legs that were no longer mere appendages, but whole, strong, able to run and walk and leap? We aren't told. We're not told a lot, but we're not told this. We're just told at once the man was cured, he picked up his mat and walked. He picked up that mat, a mat that every beggar owned, almost their only possession, the mat on which he had lain for so long, and walked. He no longer did that mat carry him through the day, he carried it. He carried it into a new life of the unknown possibilities, unlooked for responsibilities. He'd been healed unexpectedly by a man who walked into his life and changed it forever. And that is what's so scary about this story. We're just as comfortable in our own way with our lives as this beggar was with his. Like him, our lives may not be Celebrity Magazine worthy. Well, yours aren't Celebrity Magazine worthy. Mine is. But they're predictable. Our lives are generally predictable. We like our routine. We're settled. Most days we have a pretty good idea of how the day is going to roll out. I'll get up tomorrow, 6:15. I'll creak out of bed. I'll get showered and dressed. I'll do a little PT routine, and then I'll have some coffee. I'll watch the news and get angry, and I'll do a bit of crossword to keep the old gray matter rolling over, and then I'll go to work. I'll go to Tim's. I have to go to Tim's, and then go to work. Now, what work will be, I don't know. I never know. Our job as chaplains is quite reactive. Well, I'm going to go to this meeting, I'm going to do that, and then the phone rings, and the day takes a hard right or a hard left or pump the brakes. But generally speaking, it's kind of predictable. I'll do that routine. I'll get up, I'll go to work, I'll come home, get changed, say hi to Dana. How was your day? Not really listen. Yeah. Predictable. It's predictable, routine. We like our routine. Most of us like routine. We're settled. We like it. Then Jesus strolls in and upsets the apple cart. Do I want to be healed? Do I want to be challenged? Do I want to grow? Do I want to experience change? Do I want to grow in my life, my spiritual life? What we really want is not always what we say. Don't know if you've noticed that. It's often what we really want is unspoken because we're not certain or we don't think it's appropriate or whatever. It's not always what we say. To say something and mean it deep down is not the same thing. Did the lame man really want healing? Do we really want change, challenge, a life stirred by the Spirit? I'll tell you, for one, I was not all that certain, not at all, that I hate change, actually. So I was pretty certain I did not want change. Dana, on the other hand, she's what demographers call an early adopter. Oh, something new. Yes! I'm what demographers call a Luddite. Well, no, that's not true. I don't hate technology, but you're going to have to show me how good this thing is before I really change, before I adopt something new. She looks for new challenges, different things, and she thrives on that sort of thing. So she's deeply disappointed that we did not move 28 times during my career in the forces, and that it didn't include the East Coast and out camp postings and all that sort of thing. I don't particularly mind that we spent 10 years in Edmonton, and it's been 5, believe that or not, 5 here in Cold Lake now. Dana was convinced weeks before me that I would choose to follow God's call into the Canadian Forces as his chaplain. I'll tell you what, when you're driving home one night and she looks at you and says, "You gonna do it?" Do what? Knowing what the answer, what? Join the Canadian Forces as chaplain, stupid. She didn't say stupid. The tone was there. Guys, you know what I mean. Your wife gets this tone, and you know what that means. You're a moron. And I spent 3 weeks in an agony of indecision because we'd been in this our last church 13 plus years by that point. All 3 of our sons were born there. She just started a new job she loved. I was content, largely content, settled, routine. Loved the community loved us, I think. Loved the church loved us. It's annoying, though, when God and your wife tag team on you. I hadn't been looking for God to stir things up. Yes, I'd been interested in reserve chaplaincy, which would have meant no move, no huge change. Didn't happen. I had not been praying for a change. I was quite content. And I had to struggle Did I want to stay? Or did I want to follow God into the unknown? And when I say unknown, holy cow. I had no idea what was ahead. No idea. Where are we going to be posted first? Didn't really know. Didn't know. Where are we going to be posted next? Had no clue. And a lot of us are like that. We're happy where we are. We don't really want things stirred up. And then in strides Jesus and upsets the apple cart. And regardless of our answer, do I want change or do I not? How much change do I want? Do I want any? Regardless of our answer, regardless of what we think and feel deep down, we'd better get used to it, because God has a habit of stirring things up. This happened last time. Well,